Let's pause the movie right here. The opening shot is brutal in the quietest way. Panic has a taste, doesn't it? Cheap copper, stale coffee, and fear sitting at the back of your throat. Nora is sprinting across a polished marble lobby, with the heavy stomp of her abusive ex-boyfriend's boots closing in behind her. She slams the elevator button, begging those metal doors to become a wall between them. When they finally open, she doesn't look inside. She just throws herself in, desperate to escape one nightmare. But the place that saves you from a wolf can still have a lion waiting in the corner. The man standing there is not a savior. He is something worse. And those doors have just locked her inside his world. The camera drops to her bare feet. Her right heel snapped back at the bar when she pulled away from Derek's grip, leaving a red welt burning across her ankle. Right now, she only wants to disappear. Behind her, a glass shatters against a decorative pillar. Slicing through the hotel's soft jazz, then comes his voice. Nora, it cuts across the lobby, rough and ugly. He is too close. Listen carefully, and you can hear the uneven drag of his right foot. That careless limp he gets when he is 4 whiskeys in and looking for something to break. The first time he scared her, he cried afterward. The second time he blamed her. Tonight there will be no apology. Watch how the scene holds on her desperation as she reaches the elevator bank. Her breath is ripping through her throat in short, painful gasps. The alcove is empty, lined with cold brushed steel doors that throw her ruined reflection back at her. Her mascara is smeared. Her dark hair is stuck to the sweat on her neck, and her silk dress is twisted out of shape. She looks painfully out of place. A terrified woman running for her life inside a hotel built for luxury. Her thumb jams into the glowing button until her nail bed turns white. She knows it will not help. She keeps pressing anyway, because stopping would mean feeling how scared she really is. Look at the display above the doors, ticking down with cruel slowness. 8, 7, 6. It feels like the building is mocking her. Then Derek's voice rolls out from the hallway. I see you, you stupid girl. His shoulder slams into the wall, and the sound bounces toward her. He is drunk and clumsy, but there is enough strength in him to make him terrifying. Nora presses her forehead against the freezing steel doors and squeezes her eyes shut. 5, 4. The sour smell of spilled bourbon and cheap cologne reaches her before he does. She wraps both arms around her ribs, as if she can hold herself together. 3, 2. Stay with this moment, because it is almost hard to breathe. A huge hand smacks against the mahogany paneling just outside the alcove. Derek stumbles into frame, his face blotched red with rage. Then he sees her. A vicious smile opens across his mouth, showing teeth stained dark from liquor. You running, he wheezes, pushing himself off the wall. Really, one. The elevator chimes, soft and pretty, but in that silence it sounds like a gunshot. The steel doors begin to open, too slowly. Nora cannot wait for the gap to widen. She throws herself through it, scrapes her shoulder against the frame, and falls backward into the car. There is no grace in it, only panic. She hits the floor and immediately starts slapping the control panel, hitting the close button again and again. Come on, come on, she begs, her voice cracking into a sob. Derek is charging now, his boots pounding over the marble. 20 feet. 10, 5. The doors shudder, hesitate for one awful second, then start closing. Derek shoves his thick, bruised fingers into the narrowing gap. For one sick heartbeat. It looks like the sensor will catch and throw the doors open again. But he is 1 second too late. The heavy steel shuts with a final thud, cutting his fingers out of her world. She made it, barely. A split second later, Derek's fists slam against the outside of the elevator, the dull booming impact shaking the whole cabin. Bang, bang. Nora finally breaks. Her legs give out, and she slides down the mirrored wall until she hits the carpet. She pulls her knees to her chest, buries her face, and trembles as the adrenaline drains out of her all at once. She thinks she is safe. For a moment, we want to believe it too. The thick elevator walls swallow Derek's rage as the car rises. The lobby noise fades, replaced by the smooth hum of cables and cold air. Nora tries to count her breaths. She only gets to 2 before the silence changes. It takes her exactly 30 seconds to realize something is wrong. The air in the elevator does not smell like recycled hotel air. It smells expensive. Cedar, cold metal, smoke, and tailored wool. Nora freezes, the shaking in her hands stops. replaced by the stillness of someone who suddenly knows she is not alone. She never looked when she jumped in. Slowly, painfully, she lifts her head. In the opposite corner stands a man. He has not moved. He has watched her entire collapse. Without saying a word, he leans against the brass rail, hands tucked into the pockets of a charcoal suit that probably costs more than everything she owns. Freeze the frame on his face. He is not looking at her with pity. He is not confused. And he is not even annoyed in the way a rich hotel guest might be. His eyes are flat, dark, unreadable, and far too calm. The elevator keeps rising, and Nora feels every floor in her chest. 4, 5, 6. The silence inside the car is heavier than the shouting she just escaped. She stays on the floor with her back against the cold mirror, staring at the man in the corner, unable to decide whether moving would make things better or worse. Outside, Derek was loud. This man is quiet, and somehow that feels far more dangerous. Her mind is still flooded with adrenaline, trying to place him. We can tell right away he does not belong with the noisy wedding guests and drunk executives downstairs. He carries a different kind of quiet. His suit fits perfectly, falling over broad shoulders like something made for him and only him. There is no tie, and the top buttons of his shirt are undone, revealing the faint shadow of ink near his collarbone. "Are you finished?" he asks. His voice is low and heavy, the kind that seems to settle into the walls instead of echoing off them. There is no concern in it. That is what makes it land so cold. It is not a question filled with care. It is just a fact he wants confirmed. Nora opens her mouth, but her throat feels dry and raw. Instead of words, a small broken sound slips out. She swallows hard, tasting fear like copper again, and manages a nod. The man gives no reaction. He only watches her with those dead, dark eyes. Then shame pushes through the fear. She realizes she is barefoot on a dirty elevator floor, wearing a ruined dress, with cheap makeup running down her face. She scrambles to stand. Her movements are messy and frantic. For one strangely ordinary second, she wishes she had kept her shoes. Then her stocking slips on the plush carpet, and she nearly falls before catching herself on the brass handrail. She finally gets upright and presses her spine against the mahogany paneling, trying to put as much space between them as the small elevator allows. She avoids his eyes and stares at the glowing numbers instead. 12:13. "You are bleeding," he says, completely flat. Nora flinches and looks down. A thin red line is running down her arm where the elevator frame scraped her skin. She presses her thumb to the cut, smearing blood across her pale forearm. "I am fine," she whispers, though her voice barely sounds like hers. Slowly, the man pulls his right hand from his pocket. The overhead light catches the dull silver of a heavy signet ring on his index finger. Her eyes follow that small movement before she can stop herself. The camera closes in on the ring, and the truth hits at the same time she understands it. Engraved into the silver is a crest, a wolf's head tangled in thick thorns. We know what that means. It belongs to the Cassio family. They own the shipping ports, half the financial district, and enough politicians to stay untouched. Nora finally looks up at his face. The sharp jaw, the arrogant nose, those unforgiving eyes. It is Dominic Cassio, the man the papers call the quiet architect of death. She ran from a street-level monster and landed in front of a man entire rooms are afraid to name. Pause here and take in the irony of it. She has just traded a drunk who throws glass for a man rumored to bury problems where no one will ever dig. The absurdity almost makes a broken laugh rise in her chest, but she bites down on her own hand to keep herself steady. Dominic barely moves. He only tilts his head, watching recognition spread across her face. He says she recognizes him. But notice how it is not a question. It is a statement. Nora does not answer. She does not need to. The fear on her face has already told him everything. Keep the camera on her face. She cannot pull in enough air to speak. Dominic casually asks about the man downstairs, but it does not feel like an interrogation. It feels like he is collecting details, sorting them into place. When she finally chokes out that Derek is her ex, Dominic only exhales. Listen to what he says. He calls Derek uncivilized for beating on the doors. That is the cruel part. To Nora, Derek has been a monster she has tiptoed around for months. A man who brought flowers after breaking things. A man who always knew how to make sorry sound like a trap. To Dominic Cassio, he is just noise in the lobby. The tension tightens as the elevator begins to slow. The highest button pressed was for the penthouse on the 40th floor, but the car stops at 25. Neither of them touched that button. The doors slide open to a dim, expensive hallway. For 1 second, Nora thinks this might be her chance. She thinks she can run for the stairs. It is a tiny flash of hope, and the movie lets her believe it just long enough to hurt. Then we see them. 2 enormous men in dark suits wait outside, hands folded, blocking the only way out. They do not move. They do not need to. Pause again. Did you catch that tiny expression? The guards glance at her for only a fraction of a second before their attention locks on Dominic with perfect obedience. Nora stops dead. She looks at him silently, praying he will step out and let her stay behind, but he does not move. His voice drops into something dangerously soft as he tells her she has run out of places to run. It hits right in the gut. Panic locks her joints until she can barely move. She is pressed against the mirrored wall, one bare foot hovering above the carpet, caught between the man downstairs and the man standing beside her. Notice how the camera lingers on the 2 guards. They are built like freight trains, their suits stretched over broad chests. They do not glare at her, they do not threaten her. Their stillness is enough. Then there is Dominic Cassio. He steps out of the elevator with the smooth, unsettling ease of a man who knows every person in this hallway will move for him. He leaves behind the scent of cedar and expensive smoke, and suddenly the air inside the elevator feels too thin. He never raises his voice. He does not have to. The world around him already understands the order. This is the moment that breaks your heart for her. The guards clear a path for Dominic, leaving Nora staring at the glowing control panel. The close door button is only a few feet away. If she lunges, she can ride the elevator back down to the lobby, back to broken glass, back to the screaming drunk who knows exactly how to leave bruises where clothing will cover them. But look at the taller guard, the one with the pale scar over his eye. He slowly raises his huge hand and rests it against the rubber edge of the door. The sensor begins to whine. Thin and steady, her escape route is gone. Think about this setup. Dominic's voice drifts back from the shadows, telling her she can go down to the man throwing glass, or she can step out into his hallway. It sounds like a choice, but it is not really one. Nora squeezes her eyes shut, fighting the hot wave of nausea rising in her throat. She hates Derek with a bitter, exhausted hatred, but she understands his violence. It is sloppy, loud, fueled by cheap liquor, old apologies, and a fragile ego that always needs someone smaller to blame. Dominic Cassio is different. He is quiet in a way she cannot read, and that is what scares her most. Her backstory folds neatly into this moment. Nora works the floor at a high-end downtown steakhouse. She knows men like this from the edges of their tables. They leave crisp $100 bills, speak softly, and carry danger like a second shadow. You pour their wine, avoid their eyes, and pray they forget your face. But now she is bleeding in his private hallway. She opens her eyes and sees the guard staring at the wall, waiting with endless patience. At last, she peels her spine from the mirror and bites her lip until she tastes copper. Her injured ankle sends sharp pain up her leg with every step. The camera follows as she limps forward, her torn silk dress whispering against her thighs. The second she crosses the threshold, the guard drops his hand. The elevator doors close behind her, sounding like a vault ceiling shut. She is stranded on the 25th floor. No shoes, no phone, no key card. The hallway is dim on purpose, casting long, warped shadows across dark textured wallpaper. Her uneven steps disappear into the thick carpet. Dominic waits at the end of the corridor beside massive oak doors. It does not feel like she is being rescued. It feels like she has been moved somewhere deeper. Watch Dominic's body language here. He taps his key card against his thigh, calmly watching her painful approach. He does not offer a hand. He does not soften his face. He watches her the way someone might watch a wounded animal decide whether to bite. When she finally croaks out that her ankle is hurt, reaching for even the smallest scrap of human concern, his answer is ice. He only says he can see that, then pushes open the heavy door. The guards take their places outside. They are not coming in. That somehow makes it worse. She is alone with him now, and everyone outside has agreed to let that happen. Pause once more and feel the weight of this moment. Those guards are not just keeping people out. They are making sure she does not run. Nora places a trembling hand on the wooden frame, her chest tight with terror and exhaustion. She looks into the suite. It is nearly dark. except for the city skyline glittering through enormous floor-to-ceiling windows. The air smells like expensive leather, rain on glass, and his sharp cologne. Derek was the devil she knew, a pathetic little demon covered in liquor and rage. Stepping into this room feels different. Cleaner, colder, much harder to survive. Look at the shift in lighting as she finally crosses the threshold. Her bare foot touches the cold hardwood floor, and the door clicks shut behind her. The sound seals the room tight. The silence here is not peaceful. It is the kind of quiet that makes you lower your voice without knowing why. She stands there with her arms wrapped around her waist, defensive and small. For a second she notices a water ring on the glass table, the only careless mark in the whole room. Then her eyes move back to the sharp furniture, the brushed steel, the slate, the dark leather. Everything is expensive and controlled, just like the man who owns it. This final frame hits hard. Look around the room with her. There are no paintings on the walls, no magazines scattered around, no sign that anyone truly lives here. It is a luxury suite with the soul of a holding cell. Dominic casually tosses his suit jacket over a bar stool, revealing a black leather holster strapped against his ribs. The dark metal of the handgun rests against his white shirt, and he makes no effort to hide it. To him, it is as ordinary as a watch. He tells her to sit, and the silence breaks, not gently, like an order landing on the floor between them. Picture the scene. Dominic ignores her for a moment while digging through a heavy cabinet above his expensive sink. Nora, meanwhile, is in real pain. Her right ankle throbs with every heartbeat. She hobbles to the massive charcoal sofa and collapses onto it. The cold leather bites into her bare legs, and she curls in on herself, trying to take up less space. That is the saddest part. The way she makes herself smaller without even thinking. Derek trained that into her slowly, with slammed doors, sweet apologies, and punishments that always came after she spoke too honestly. We hear running water, plastic rustling, and then Dominic steps back around the island. Pause for a second. Dominic brings over a black medical kit and a damp towel. Notice that he does not sit beside her on the sofa. He drags a heavy glass table closer, its metal legs scraping against the expensive floor, and sits right in front of her, too close for comfort. She can see the silver scars crossing his knuckles. He snaps the kit open and tells her to give him her arm. Nora flinches, clutching the raw scrape as if it were a shield. She insists she only needs soap. Dominic goes still, his dark eyes lifting to hers with a patience that feels more threatening than anger. There is no rage in his expression, only pressure. He tells her he is not asking for her medical opinion, then adds that he can take her arm if that is easier. The quiet threat drains the fight out of her. Her adrenaline is gone now, leaving only a hollow ache behind. Slowly she holds out her shaking hand. He takes her wrist in a firm grip. It is warmer than she expected, and that almost makes it harder to process. There is no pleasure in the way he handles her. No sneer, no little punishment hidden in his touch, just blunt efficiency. But when the damp towel touches the torn skin, Nora arches off the cushions. He tells her to hold still, and it is not comfort. It is an order. He tears open an alcohol wipe with his teeth, eyes fixed on her wound, and says she fights like a cornered stray. Nora clenches her jaw as the sharp hospital smell hits the air. She says she was running for her life. Dominic answers without looking up. She was running blindly. The words sting almost as much as the alcohol. He presses the pad into the torn skin, and she gasps, fingers clawing at the leather as tears blur her vision. For 1 second, she hates him for being right. Then she hates herself for needing him there. Instinct takes over, and she tries to yank her arm back, but his hand tightens like steel. Dominic keeps talking in that smooth, conversational tone, as if they are discussing a bad habit instead of the worst night of her life. He points out that she jumped into a strange elevator without looking, reacting only to the noise behind her. That is how people get killed. Nora looks away, embarrassed because she knows she would do it again if Derek was behind her. The pain snaps through her restraint, and the sharp edge Derek tried to grind out of her comes rushing back. She mocks him, asking if the great Dominic Cassio is playing nurse just to let her go. The alcohol wipe stops in midair. Dominic slowly raises his head, and that flat, lifeless stare flickers with something almost amused. It is not quite a smile, but his jaw loosens. He says she has a sharp tongue for someone bleeding all over a stranger's expensive couch. Nora refuses to look away. Her heart is hammering, but she only says she had a bad night. He tosses the dirty wipe aside and tears the bandage with cold, precise movements. Then he tells her this is not charity. She was bleeding on his shoes, and he hates messes. A broken laugh slips out of her before she can stop it. He lets go of her wrist and leans back, his eyes making a slow inventory of her face. The smeared mascara, the bruised shadows under her eyes, the bitter twist of her mouth. He shuts the medical kit and says her arm is clean. Then he moves to the real problem. They need to discuss the angry man downstairs, who is currently breaking hotel property, to find something sitting in this room. He says he needs to decide whether she is worth the headache. The air catches in Nora's throat. She stares at him, sitting calmly on the glass table, and understands exactly what he means. He is weighing her life like a business inconvenience. The words come out before she can stop them. She tells him she is not a thing. Her voice is brittle, too tired to sound strong. But the defiance is still there. Dominic does not blink. He pulls out a sleek matte black phone, its blue light sharpening the hard lines of his face. Then he explains it without emotion. To the man downstairs, she is property. To Dominic, she is an unexpected variable. A liability in a ruined dress bleeding on his furniture. The coldness of it lands harder than an insult. Still, there is one difference she cannot ignore. Derek calls her property because he wants to own her. Dominic calls her a liability because he wants to control the damage. Look closely at the bottom right square on the screen. It is the hotel lobby. Nora leans in, and her breath catches. There is Derek, his face red and slick with sweat as he jabs a thick finger at a terrified night clerk. Even without sound, you can feel the violent, jerky rage in his shoulders. He is demanding access, demanding his property back. A cold sweat breaks across Nora's neck as she whispers that Derek knows people here, that he will find out what floor she came to. Dominic does not flinch. He simply says, "Let him find out." He says it so calmly that the room seems to go colder. Dominic picks up his phone and lays out the fortress around him. The elevators require encrypted cards. The stairs are locked. If Derek somehow gets through all of that, he meets the armed guards in the hall, and if he somehow gets past them, he meets Dominic. He looks up, pinning her with that heavy stare. Loud men like her ex, he says, are rarely as dangerous as they pretend to be. They run on fear without it. They are just meat-making noise. Nora shrinks into the cushions. The description is cruel, but it is also accurate, and that makes it worse, still. She warns him Derek will not give up. She tries to explain that if Derek's pride is wounded, he will tear the whole building apart. He has done it before in smaller ways. Broken her phone, called her boss, waited outside her apartment with roses in one hand and rage in the other. Dominic only answers softly. Let him try to tear my building apart. That possessive word "my" sends a chill down her spine. The Cassio family does not rent luxury penthouses. They own the concrete beneath them. She ran from a cheap barroom bully, straight into the lap of the underworld's most dangerous landlord. She hugs her ribs and asks why he is letting her stay. She asks why she is even sitting there. Dominic studies her in a thick, uncomfortable silence. Notice where his eyes go. Not to her legs. Not to her chest. He looks straight into the exhausted, cynical depth of her eyes, searching for something she does not know how to hide. Finally, he says it is because she did not beg. The words land strangely. When the elevator doors closed, she did not cry for a hero. She looked at him, recognized the threat, and tried to calculate her odds. He tilts his head and admits that he hates weakness but respects survival. Nora exhales, but it does not feel like relief. It feels like being understood by the wrong man. It is not a compliment. It is an observation, almost clinical, of what she has had to become. Dominic stands with smooth, silent grace, pockets his phone, and takes his suit jacket from the stool. He points her toward a guest room down the hall and tells her to wash off the blood and try to sleep. The armed guards will stay posted until morning. But Nora, her voice tight, asks the question that matters. What happens tomorrow? Dominic pauses in the hallway, dim light carving hard shadows into his face. He says that tomorrow, the noisy meet downstairs will be gone, and she will walk out the front door. After that, Her life is her problem again. Picture it. He turns his back and disappears into the dark corners of his enormous, expensive suite. He does not wait for an answer. And this is the part that hurts. Nora sits alone in that cavernous room, staring at her shaking hands, and she feels relief. This man is a killer, a monster with polished shoes and a private army. And yet this is the safest she has felt in 6 months. No one will kick the door in tonight. No one will grab her hair. No one will make her apologize for being hurt. The thought should disgust her. Instead, it nearly makes her cry. Her bare feet sink into the thick carpet as she finally limps down the shadowed hall. The guest room reflects the man who owns it. Sterile, cold, and completely controlled. A giant mattress sits under painfully white sheets, surrounded by heavy oak furniture and no sign that anyone has ever relaxed here. It feels like a showroom for someone who forgot what comfort is supposed to mean. Nora does not even look at the bed. She drags herself into the attached bathroom, pushing through a heavy glass door into the sharp scent of eucalyptus and the bite of freezing slate tiles. She grips the marble vanity as if it is the only thing keeping her upright. For a few seconds, she just stands there, breathing. Then she forces herself to look in the mirror. Her dark hair is matted against her damp forehead. Black mascara has dried into cracked lines down her cheeks. She looks hollowed out, like the night has scraped everything soft from inside her. The silk slip dress cost her a full week of tips, and now it is split at the seams. Ruined by cheap alcohol and her own blood, she looks like a victim, and that realization cuts deeper than she expects. Then she remembers Derek standing in her kitchen 2 months ago, telling her nobody else would want a woman who made everything so difficult. The memory lands hard. With shaking fingers, she drags the zipper down and lets the ruined silk fall. She steps into the blistering spray and gasps as the hot water hits the scrape on her arm and the ugly welt forming around her ankle. It stings badly, but the pain is sharp enough to pull her back into her body. She scrubs herself with a heavy block of cedar soap until her skin is flushed and raw. But the cruel detail is this: the soap smells exactly like him, dark, heavy, impossible to ignore, for one small, ridiculous second. She misses the cheap lavender body wash in her own shower. Then she shuts the water off, and the silence of the penthouse rushes back in. She wraps herself in a huge white towel and steps out shivering. Nora stands frozen for a moment, then limps to the massive oak dresser. She pulls open the top drawer, expecting it to be empty. It is not. Inside are rows of men's shirts arranged with almost mathematical precision, all black, all charcoal. The cotton is absurdly soft, the kind of fabric that costs more than her rent. She grabs a black shirt and pulls it over her head. It is enormous on her, falling halfway down her thighs and swallowing her frame. Even the fabric carries that lingering cedar scent. She gives in, crawls into the massive bed, and drags the heavy duvet up to her chin. The mattress is firm, unforgiving, and somehow exactly what she expected. The pillows smell like cold rain and ozone. The whole room is locked in a heavy silence. Up this high, there is no traffic noise, no boots thudding overhead, no sudden crash of glass. But sleep will not come. Every time her eyes close, her mind plays the worst parts again. The frantic sprint across pavement, the sound of Derek's boots behind her, the cold steel of the elevator doors. And worst of all, Dominic Cassio watching from the corner with flat, dead eyes. She turns the pillow over, as if the cool side might fix anything. By 2 a.m, her throat feels scraped raw from the dry air conditioning. She finally throws back the duvet. She only needs water. She also needs to move, because lying still in that museum of a room is making her anxiety claw at her ribs. She steps into the dark hallway, slow and careful. The entire suite is black, lit only by the faint electric glow of the city through the windows. Her bare feet make no sound on the expensive wood. She pauses once outside the bedroom door, listening to nothing. That quiet should calm her. It does not. She rounds the corner of the huge kitchen island and freezes. Dominic is sitting there in a low leather chair, holding a heavy crystal glass. The suit is gone. Now he wears a tight gray shirt that pulls across the broad, tense lines of his shoulders. The faint city light catches the dark ink running down his left arm, a harsh pattern of sharp geometric lines and heavy shadows. He has been sitting in the dark, staring out at the glittering city, like something carved onto the roof of a church. Then, without turning his head, he speaks. He tells her the tap water is filtered. His voice is low, rough against the quiet room. He did not look at her. Yet he knew exactly when she crossed the threshold. That kind of awareness does not come from peace. It comes from living like danger is always close. Nora swallows. Her heart kicks into panic again. She whispers that she did not mean to wake him. He takes a slow sip from his glass, the ice clicking sharply against the crystal. Then he says he does not sleep, and you can feel the truth beneath it. Nora forces herself to move behind the kitchen island. Every muscle in her body is tight. She fills a glass from the heavy brass tap and drinks quickly, letting the cold water soothe her dry throat. Common sense tells her to go back to the bedroom, but something keeps her there. Maybe fear. Maybe curiosity. Maybe the awful relief of not being alone. Quietly, she asks if Derek left. The tension here is almost physical. Very slowly, like a predator turning toward a sound, Dominic shifts his gaze. His dark eyes move over her, taking in his oversized shirt, her bruised legs, and her damp, tangled hair. His stare feels heavy enough to touch, but he does not move closer. That small restraint matters, and Nora hates that she notices it. At last he answers. The man made a scene, so his men removed him, he mentions, as casually as if discussing the weather, that Derek is now nursing a shattered cheekbone in a cab. Nora stops breathing. She accuses him of having Derek hurt. Dominic only corrects her coldly. He says he had them remove trash. Hours later, harsh morning sunlight floods the guest room. Nora wakes with a violent jolt. Her heart hammers against her ribs like a trapped bird trying to escape. And it takes several seconds for her mind to understand she is not in immediate danger. She feels the cool cotton sheets. She hears the silence. She pushes herself up, wincing as the raw skin on her arm pulls against a neat white bandage. Her ankle throbs in an ugly rhythm, the joint now bruised in deep shades of purple and yellow. His black shirt is twisted around her waist, still carrying that cedar and metallic ozone scent. It reminds her whose territory she is in. She swings her legs out and her bare feet touch the freezing wood floor. Every muscle in her body hurts. It is the heavy, toxic hangover that comes after surviving pure panic. She feels fragile, like glass dropped on the kitchen floor that somehow has not shattered yet. In the bathroom, she splashes freezing water over her face and refuses to look in the mirror. The hard truth is that falling apart will not keep her alive. Right now, she has to think. She has to figure out how to cross the city without Derek waiting on some sidewalk. She searches for a hair tie on the counter, finds nothing, and gathers her hair with shaking fingers instead. He is sitting at the kitchen island, already dressed like he is headed into a war room. He wears a flawless navy suit, though the jacket and tie have been set aside. His crisp white sleeves are pushed past his elbows, revealing the ink wrapped around his forearms. He is working through something on a silver laptop, with a focus so sharp it makes you want to step back. A steaming mug of black espresso fills the air with a bitter scent. He does not look up when her feet shuffle across the floor. He mentions a bag on the sofa, his voice a low rasp that cuts through the room. Nora freezes, then slowly turns toward the place where she bled the night before. There, in the center of the expensive leather cushion, sits a plain brown shopping bag. She limps over cautiously and looks inside. Folded neatly at the bottom are a new pair of dark jeans, an impossibly soft cashmere sweater, and simple leather flats. Tucked into the sweater collar is a blank white envelope. Her stomach flips. Fresh clothes should feel kind, but this does not feel kind. It means that while she was unconscious, this man sent unseen people into the city. It means someone guessed her size, judged her needs, and brought back exactly what would fit. To him, she is not a woman he rescued. She is a problem he has organized. Picture Nora standing there, voice thin and bruised, telling Dominic he did not have to save her. And how does this billionaire knight in dark armor respond? He shuts his laptop with a small cold click. Morning light hits his face. But it does not soften him. It only sharpens his jaw and makes his dead eyes look even colder. He sips his espresso and tells her, in plain terms, that a beaten woman in a torn dress made his lobby look bad. It is a brutal slap of reality. He did not do this because he is gentle. He did it because she became part of his space, and Dominic Cassio controls what happens in his space. Then he says a private car is waiting. Listen to the instructions he gives her. Do not give the driver an address. Give him an intersection and walk the rest of the way. A cold chill runs down her spine. He is not calling her a cab. He is arranging an extraction. Back in the guest room, she slips into the jeans and cashmere sweater, both fitting perfectly enough to make her uncomfortable. The sweater feels warm and expensive against her bruised skin. Then she finds the envelope. It sits there like a small bomb. Inside are 5 crisp $100 bills. No note, no explanation. Just clean. Quiet money. A bitter laugh catches in her throat. Cash without words does not feel like help. It feels like a transaction. Call it what it is. This is a severance package for surviving one night in his orbit. She marches back out and drops the envelope on his pristine marble island. Dominic looks at it without expression. Nora lifts her chin. Only a fraction, but it matters, and tells him she does not need his cash. She only needed a safe door to lock behind her. Then Dominic says something that lands hard. Pride is a luxury for people who are not being hunted. He tells her to break her lease. She says she will manage. Her voice shakes, but she does not take the envelope back for a second. Neither of them speaks, somewhere in the suite. A coffee machine clicks off. The air in the penthouse seems to drop 10 degrees. Men like Dominic are not used to hearing no. It sits between them like something foreign. But instead of exploding, something darker and more interested passes through his eyes. He tells her softly to suit herself and gestures toward the heavy oak doors. Then he does something that feels almost worse. He says her name. Good luck, Nora, in that low voice. It feels less like a goodbye and more like a mark pressed into her skin. She swallows, nods once, and limps out of his gilded cage. When she steps from the tinted black sedan onto the street, the city heat hits her hard. Freedom does not feel clean. It feels exposed. During the 20-minute ride across the city, the driver says nothing. He has a thick neck and eyes like a dead shark. When they reach the intersection she chose, 3 blocks from her apartment, he only unlocks the doors. Outside, the air smells of hot asphalt, rotting trash, and sour exhaust. After the cedar-scented air of the penthouse, it feels like a slap back into real life. Nora stands on the corner and waits until the sedan disappears before moving. The heavy cashmere sweater makes her sweat in the humid morning air, but she keeps it wrapped tight around herself. A woman passing by glances at the sweater, then at Nora's bare, tired face, and quickly looks away. She begins the painful walk home, each step sending a shock up her bruised leg. She keeps her head down, her eyes flicking toward every parked car and every man walking in her direction. Dominic thought a broken cheekbone would keep Derek away. But we know Derek better than that. Derek is driven by spite. Pain will not stop a man like him. It will only give him something else to blame her for. That is what he always does. He hurts himself on his own rage, then makes her pay for the wound. Nora finally reaches her street. Her building is a cramped brick box wedged between a dry cleaner and a dying bodega. The front door has not latched properly in 3 years. It is the kind of place where safety is mostly pretending. She pushes through the useless glass door and ignores the old elevator. The last thing she can handle is being trapped in another metal box. So she drags her aching body up 3 flights of stairs. Her hands shake so badly she drops her keys twice. The sound echoes through the dingy hallway like a gunshot. At last she gets the deadbolt open, nearly falls inside, and locks everything behind her. Deadbolt, chain. A heavy wooden chair shoved under the knob. The apartment looks exactly as she left it. But it feels wrong now. It smells of cheap vanilla candles, trying to cover stale coffee and smoke. Home should make you breathe easier. This one only makes her listen harder. Nora sinks against the peeling paint of the front door and slides down to the floor. She pulls her knees close and buries her face in the soft cashmere. For 10 minutes, the only sound is the panicked beating of her own heart. Then she notices a coffee mug still sitting on the table. Lipstick on the rim, from a morning that feels like it belonged to someone else. Across the room, the red light on her cheap answering machine is blinking. 14 messages. She crawls over and presses play. The first messages are ugly chaos. Derek is slurring, drunk on cheap liquor and a bruised male ego. He screams about how she made him look like a fool, and something crashes in the background. Then, right on schedule, his tone changes. By the middle of the night, he is sobbing that pathetic, wet sob she knows too well. He swears he loves her, swears he will change. He calls her baby in the same voice he once used after putting his fist through her kitchen cabinet. That was how he always pulled her back in. Not with force, at first, but with guilt, memory, and the tiny hope that maybe this time he meant it. But it is the final message, recorded at 4:15 in the morning, that turns her blood cold. He is not slurring anymore. He is sober, eerily calm, and breathing hard as if every word hurts his broken face. Derek found the bartender. The bartender talked. And now Derek knows which penthouse she went to. His voice is pure venom. He tells her the rich prick will throw her out, and when he does, Derek will be waiting, because she belongs to him. The machine clicks off, leaving a suffocating silence in the little room. Derek is too stupid and too arrogant to understand who he is provoking. He thinks Dominic is just another rich man with nicer shoes. He is going to catch her when she is alone. She looks down at her pale, violently trembling hands. Then at the white bandage on her bicep. You might want to scream at the screen and tell her to call the police. But she tried that last year. They gave her a sad look, a useless pamphlet, and told her to call again if her door was actually kicked in. By the time a squad car arrived, she could already be dead. Slowly she stands. The throbbing in her ankle seems to fade behind a colder, clearer fear. She is out of choices, and that gives her a terrible kind of focus. She cannot outrun Derek. She has no money, no strength to fight him, and nowhere safe enough to hide. He is a rabid dog following blood. But there is one place in this city where a rabid dog would not dare bark. A luxury penthouse guarded by cold men in tailored suits. Owned by a monster. Nora grabs a faded canvas duffel bag. She does not pack memories or photographs, just socks, a few shirts, and a toothbrush. Then she stops, goes back, and adds the cracked blue mug her sister gave her years ago. It is small and useless, but it is hers. She is not going back to beg. If she has to make a deal with the devil, she will stand straight when she offers it. And that is the cruel irony. The devil is the only one with a door Derek cannot kick open. The heat outside seems to melt the pavement. But Nora pushes through the heavy revolving doors and is hit by freezing air and the scent of expensive white orchids. It has only been 2 hours since she walked out of this lobby, but it feels like another life. She limps to the marble desk. The daytime concierge takes one look at her pale, bruised face and the sad canvas duffel bag, and his polished corporate smile cracks to him. She looks like the kind of problem he is trained to move along quietly. A moment later, Nora is standing in front of him with both hands gripping the strap of her bag. The concierge gives her the stiff, polite greeting designed to push unwanted people back onto the street. She says she needs to send a message to the penthouse, specifically to Dominic Cassio. At that name, the concierge freezes. His polished mask slips into panic. He glances over her shoulder. Terrified someone heard it spoken aloud. He starts to deny it. But Nora cuts through him. Her voice drops into something flat and dead as she tells him Nora is downstairs, and she brought his envelope back. Polite rules do not matter when survival is on the line. Pause the movie here. Look at Nora collapsing onto that elegant emerald sofa. She is drained in every possible way. Derek's poisonous voicemail keeps repeating in her head, especially the part where he says he owns her. 10 agonizing minutes pass while soft elevator jazz plays in the background. She sits very still, one hand on her duffel, trying not to look like someone who might break apart in public. Then a huge guard appears, scarred eyebrow, shoulder holster, built like a tank. He only nods toward the private elevator. No words needed. Despite her screaming ankle, she follows. She is walking back into danger, because the danger outside has her address. Watching the elevator numbers climb, you can feel her stomach drop. She knows this is a terrible idea. She has packed her whole life into one pathetic bag and is willingly walking into a tiger cage to hide from a rabid dog. When the heavy oak doors open, midday sun floods the enormous suite, making it look sterile, beautiful, and empty, like a bank vault. Dominic stands by the glass with his back half turned to her. It is painfully ironic. She spent the night wanting to escape this place, and now it is the only door in the city she believes might hold. Now look at Dominic, tailored pants, slate gray shirt, sleeves rolled up, showing the heavy ink on his arms. He holds a crystal glass of expensive liquor with one perfectly square ice cube. He does not even bother to look at her when he says she is terrible at following instructions. Nora drops her small bag and tosses the envelope onto the glass table. The envelope slides, hits the water ring, and stops. She tells him plainly that she cannot outrun Derek, that the arrogant fool left a voicemail and is waiting for her. Dominic finally turns. His face gives away almost nothing, but his eyes sharpen for the first time. She has brought him something that sounds less like a nuisance and more like an invitation. Look closely at his dark eyes in the harsh sunlight. There is no surprise in them. He looks at her cheap luggage, then at her face, silently asking if her grand plan is to crawl back to the man who told her to disappear. But Nora holds her ground. She repeats his own words back to him. Loud abusive men survive on fear. Take that away. And they are just empty meat-making noise. She looks this terrifying mob boss in the eye and says she needs his doors. Dominic's jaw tightens. He moves across the floor without a sound until he is only inches from her. She is shaking, but she does not step back. Suddenly she is surrounded by the scent of cedar and cold smoke, terrified but strangely steady. Dominic lays it out in a voice that is soft and deadly. He does not run a charity for strays. If she stays, she follows his rules. Her life, her safety, and her loyalty belong to him now. Listen to that word. Belong. Derek used it like a chain. Dominic uses it like a contract written in blood. Shaking, she asks what he wants from her. He reaches out, then stops just short of her face, as if giving her one last chance to move away. She does not. Only then does he brush his knuckles lightly along her cheek. This is the moment the trap closes. Dominic looks straight through her and murmurs that he wants to see what a cornered animal becomes when it finally stops running. Nora closes her eyes, exhales a broken breath, and whispers one simple word. Okay, she has traded a chaotic, screaming monster for a cold, calculated predator. And the worst part is that some small, exhausted part of her believes this predator might keep the other one away. Dominic lets his hand fall from her face. Then, without looking away from Nora, he speaks to the guard at the door. Find Derek, he says. Bring him to me alive. Nora's story is a powerful lesson about survival and the painful reality of abuse. At the beginning, she is running from Derek, a man whose violence has become familiar, predictable, and terrifying. Her fear is not exaggerated. It is the fear of someone who knows exactly what will happen if she is caught. This makes the story emotionally meaningful because it shows how abuse traps people not only physically, but psychologically. One important lesson from the story is that leaving an abusive person is rarely simple. Nora escapes into the elevator, but she does not immediately become free. She is still injured, frightened, without a clear plan, and afraid Derek will find her again. This reflects a real truth. Escaping danger is only the first step. Safety must be rebuilt carefully. Dominic Cassio represents a complicated form of protection. He is dangerous, cold, and morally questionable, but he also gives Nora something Derek never gave her. A locked door, space to breathe, and a chance to decide. The story teaches that people in crisis often look for safety wherever they can find it. However, it also warns us that safety should not become another form of control. Nora's decision to return to Dominic is not weakness. It is strategy. She understands that she cannot outrun Derek alone, so she looks for protection in the only place Derek may fear. This shows that survival sometimes requires hard choices, especially when ordinary systems have failed. For viewers, the educational message is clear. Do not judge victims for the choices they make while trying to survive. Fear changes the way people think. Abuse limits options. What looks irrational from the outside may be the only possible path from the inside. Nora's story reminds us that survival begins when a person stops accepting violence as normal and starts searching for a door that can finally close.